started.
Good morning, everyone. Can we scoot in? Yeah.
We can squeeze in a little bit for camera shots. All right, welcome everyone to the Not Your Dumping Ground press conference. Representative Miller's going to get us started here in just a moment. Jeremy, you down, Jeff? Yeah. All right, Representative Miller.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here this morning. I'm State Representative Reggie Miller from Michigan's 31st District, and I'm proud to stand with my friend and colleague, Senator Darren Camilleri, my staff, my Minority Speaker, Ranjit Puri, who has supported me throughout this process. I'm here with my colleagues and a group of local elected officials and community members from Wayne County to speak on our legislation that would reform our state's waste disposal policies. These bills, if passed, would protect our communities, defend our environment, and make Michigan strong on waste regulation. Look, I'm not here just as a legislator. I'm here for the voice of my community. The bills we are introducing today come directly from the concerns I've heard again and again from the people that I represent in my district. Our residents are worried about radioactive waste. They're frustrated with our out-of-state trash pouring into landfills, and they demand action, not just talk. This isn't a policy issue, it's a people issue. These bills are a direct response from phone calls and conversations and emails and meetings that I've had with residents who are deeply concerned. And that's why I'm here today, because we're taking in these trucks and they're dumping it here in Michigan, and we need to do better. We need stricter laws. Michigan currently has some of the lowest tipping fees in the nation at 36 cents a ton, which is why out-of-state waste keeps pouring in. We've made the decision to combine tipping fee legislation with the radioactive waste bill because these issues are deeply interconnected. Both deal with how waste enters and impacts our communities. Whether it's from out-of-state trash filling our landfills or radioactive material coming in due to outdated regulations and bad trade deals. By aligning these reforms, we create a stronger, more unified, and comprehensive approach to waste management. It's a smarter strategy, rooted in science and community priorities. Senator Camilleri and State Representative Weigela is also introducing legislation to address the Romulus injection well site, a site that has long raised concerns for residents. Senator Camilleri's bill creates strong regulation and community protections. And my office is proud to introduce and update a bill that addresses radioactive waste in our communities. We've listened, we've researched, and we strengthened the language in the bill. As some of you recall, August 19th, 2024, a day I will never forget, I was notified by a reporter at the Detroit Free Press that radioactive waste from the Manhattan Project was stored at a site in New York State would be shipped to a site in Van Buren Township's disposal. This project was expected to generate dozens of semi-loads of radioactive waste per week between September and January, which requires the shipments to battle Michigan winters and driving conditions. Thankfully, the mayors and supervisors of Belleville, Canton, Romulus, and Van Buren Township joined together in filing an injunction temporarily that halted this waste from being shipped here. At that snapshot in time, the judge ruled in our favor, and the waste was temporarily prevented from being brought into the community. But this is just one battle. We desperately need to update our laws and rules at the state to ensure that this isn't a recurring theme. 1 minute, please. Just got to take a little sip. This bill amends the Natural Resources and Environmental Protections Act to bring in much needed reform to hazardous waste management. Too long, communities across Michigan, especially those near these sites, these hazardous waste treatment and disposal facilities, have had to accept the waste and the environmental risks that come with this. And that's not okay. This legislation addresses those concerns head on. Let's be clear here. As I said, Michigan currently has some of the lowest fees in the nation, which is what incentivizes states and countries to ship the trash here. This legislation would bring Michigan tipping fees closer to regional averages, create a revenue share between state and local governments that host these landfills, and allow the current host site agreements to remain in place. These fees will be reassessed every 5 years to ensure the fees stay up to date. Next, the bill places a moratorium on new multi-source commercial hazardous waste facilities until EGLE updates and implements a comprehensive waste management plan. This ensures that we don't expand waste disposal without fully understanding its long-term impact. This bill also enhances public transparency and accountability by requiring multiple hearings before key management decisions are made and creating financial assurance requirements. Finally, this legislation prevents the expansion of hazardous waste sites in overburdened communities that face disproportionate environmental and health burdens. Michigan families deserve the right to clean air and water, period. Together, we can set a new standard for environmental protection and public health and community empowerment. Environmental oversight is not optional, it's essential. These bills aren't just about landfills and injection wells and tipping fees. They're about healthy communities and a future that we can be proud of. And together we can build a safer, cleaner Michigan, just not for today, next year, but for generations to come. Now I will turn the podium over to Senator Darren Camilleri, and I ask that you hold your questions until everyone has had a chance to speak, and then Darren and I will start taking questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Miller, and good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for your partnership on this legislation. We are going to make a good go of it this round as well to ensure that we can protect our communities. I want to extend a special thank you to our mayors and our supervisors and our county commissioner for joining us this morning and coming all the way up here to Lansing to advocate on behalf of our shared communities. So yesterday, I introduced Senate Bill 246 and Senate Bill 247. These bills reflect a comprehensive modernization of Michigan's hazardous waste management system, like you just heard from Representative Miller, strengthening our environmental protections for communities across our state. The need for this legislation has been obvious for some time, but the immediate impetus came in February 2023 when news broke that the waste from the East Palestine train derailment was transported to Romulus for disposal with no advance warning to local governments or emergency responders. In the summer of 2024, we learned that radioactive waste from the Manhattan Project was being brought to Van Buren Township. Our communities continued to become the dumping ground for other places to send their hazardous waste, and we say enough is enough. Those examples got headlines, but they are only a small portion of the entire picture. Over the past few decades, Michigan has grown to become one of the premier dumping grounds for hazardous and landfill waste from across North America. Some of this waste is potentially harmful to local communities, and some of it is regular trash that's being routed here because we currently charge one of the lowest tipping fees in the nation. Senate Bill 246 will tackle these problems in multiple ways. It will raise those tipping fees on non-hazardous landfill waste alongside more substantial fees for various kinds of hazardous waste disposal. Crucially, this legislation will cap the maximum amount of hazardous waste that can be annually disposed of in Michigan based on the amount of waste that is actually generated here in our state. New hazardous and radioactive disposal wells will be permanently banned, and the expansion of currently operating treatment and storage facilities will be subject to rigorous siting requirements. To protect taxpayers from having to pay for future cleanups, we've significantly strengthened financial assurance requirements. To that end, I will put things simply. Our communities are sick and tired of being the premier dumping ground for out-of-state trash and some of the most hazardous waste known to man. Over recent weeks, it's become clear to me that my colleagues across the aisle are big fans of tariffs. So my message to the Speaker and to our Republican colleagues, join us in supporting the trash tariff, because this is one that I think we can all get behind. So let's get together, let's get this done, and let's protect Michigan communities. Thank you. I think up next we've got Representative Wogella.
First off, thank you for being here. I think, plain and simple, for far too long, Michigan has been the dumping ground for everyone else's waste. And there's no logical reason for our state to be the dumping ground, because we're home to the most fresh water in the United States. And it is just, it's a wild and illogical thing that is happening. And that's why I'm proud to stand here with my colleagues, Rep. Reggie Miller and Senator Darren Camilleri and everyone else who's here with me. And this problem is created in large because of our low tipping fees. We have more trash per person than any other state in the country. And tipping fees in Michigan are so low, they, as it was mentioned before, are creating this incentive for corporations and other actors to bring their waste here simply because it is cheaper to do so. Over the past several years, we have seen out-of-state waste being transported here, and at times with no notice, such as the East Palestine train derailment. And, you know, to be honest, the residents of my districts, and I think this would be the same for my colleagues, they're deeply concerned about this site, and they would honestly prefer it not to be there at all. Residents have major concerns over the health and safety, partially because if you look back in July of 2022, when inspected by Eagle, they found inadequate waste identification and labeling, liquid containment modification without permit, facility inspection requirements that were not met, and improper tank system requirements. Now, to our knowledge, there were no releases to the environment, but why are we taking the risk at all? This should be a question we all have. And the truth is that these corporations will not make changes to this practice on their own, which is why I think this legislation is so important. If we raise the tipping fees, it will not only discourage the practice of bringing waste to our communities, but it will also generate revenue for the communities that have to have these in their surrounding neighborhoods. In regards to nuclear waste, I think something I like to bring up is that the federal government, this is partially on their responsibility as well, and we're going to do everything we can to make Michigan safer. But there is the Nuclear Waste Fund federally that has over $50 billion in it, and Congress has failed to act on creating a safe site to put nuclear waste across the country. So I think we need to continuously talk about that. That's something new I learned about as these things came through. Lastly, I'll keep it brief, but if working class communities are going to be forced to have these sites in their neighborhoods, the least that we can do is structure a policy that keeps them safe, but also brings revenue back to those communities. Thank you. And next up, we have Kevin McNamara.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm here to talk about the fact that I don't believe that this legislation is radical at all. It's an evolution of the legislation that was out there before. 30 years ago, we developed county waste plans that were supposed to develop sustainability in our trash management. It did. It worked. It was a good idea. But they made the 36 cents a ton thing only to manage that trash plan. And they licensed up so many landfills that they created a glut. And they ended up having to go out and look for waste. And they found it in Canada, and they found it from other states. And they started shipping it here. Our biggest landfills today in Michigan now accept more than 50% of their waste is coming from Canada. In Sumter, it's 55%. Pine Tree Acres, it's over 70%. These are landfills that were supposed to last 50 years and are down under 20 years. The state of Michigan is under 20 years now of landfill capacity. We need to slow this waste down, and this bill does that. We also need to look at this T-norm legislation. It was started by Snyder, and it was a good idea. We needed to get rid of radiologists' gloves and Tyveks and smoke detectors. That's what it was meant for. It wasn't meant to take uranium ore processed for your atomic bombs. But because that legislation left loopholes, they're sending it here, and they're sending it here in droves. And we are becoming the dumping ground for the entire United States, or at least everything east of the Mississippi. I'm backing this legislation because we need Lansing's help. We need the governor's help. We need the Senate's help. We need the House's help to stop this inflow of waste and protect our communities. Thank you.
So next we will hear from Mayor McCraven.
Thank you for coming here today. It's an honor to be here today. It's an honor to hear legislation being introduced that will help protect the public safety and also the residents of this state. The number one job of a public official or elected official is public safety. This legislation helps to work towards that. And Romulus has been alone in this fight for 30 years with the deep injection well. We've never approved of the injection well. We've never been supported by the state or the federal government. And it's an honor today to see legislation being introduced that will help curb this activity. The state of Michigan has become a dumping ground for hazardous material. This is not a byproduct of industry or something that creates jobs. This is hazardous material disposal for hire. It's for profit. It doesn't create jobs. It doesn't create an industry. It is dispose of hazardous material, and we're going to bury it here right by the Great Lakes, which we are stewards of our waterways. So we need to protect those for future generations. So it's an honor to be here for this legislation today, and I want to remind everybody that this is a regional issue. This is a Michigan issue. This is not Democratic or Republican. This is a Michigan issue. We talk about Palestine, Ohio, and the events that led to the hazardous material being shipped here to be stored in the deep injection well in Romulus. That material was 99% water, but it got everybody involved and everybody freaked out. It is not the most dangerous material they're allowed to inject in that well. So it's time to introduce legislation and pass legislation that will help protect Michigan, protect our waterways, and I keep saying that this is a regional issue. We've had 3 train derailments in the Romulus and Van Buren area within a span of 24 months, 2 of which contained hazardous material. So if it passes through your community, it's your issue as well. We need to stop Michigan from being a for-hire hazardous material dumping ground for the rest of the United States. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Supervisor Anne Marie Graham-Hudak of Canton Township. I'd like to begin by thanking Rep. Reggie Miller for introducing this legislation fighting for every community affected by radioactive waste being sited, stored, and transported in Michigan, as has been said. For all of us in Canton Township, this journey began on August 19th, as it was mentioned, when the Free Press reported on New York's plan to transport 6,000 cubic yards of soil and concrete and 4,000 gallons of groundwater contaminated with elevated radiation from the Manhattan Project, which developed the atomic bomb during World War II, sending it right here to Michigan. Wayne Disposal in Van Buren Township, just 3 miles south of Canton. We all immediately swung into action, including Congresswoman Debbie Dingell and Warren Evans, holding a town hall with over 500 people, including the EPA, Eagle, Army Corps of Engineers, and more. Lots of residents, lots of very upset residents. Visiting the site and survey surrounding the area, we were upset to learn that the Wayne Disposal site is adjacent to 2 schools, a highly populated neighborhood, and is part of the Huron River watershed, close to our rivers, lakes, streams, and groundwater. The Huron River drains into Lake Erie, which is part of the Great Lakes watershed, home to over 21% of the world's fresh water. Dumping this waste at Wayne Disposal was clearly a threat to our health and our environment throughout the entire state and region. After doing the homework, our board unanimously passed a resolution in opposition to this, accepting radioactive waste. Many communities up here and others also passed their own resolution, including the Conference of Western Wayne, representing 18 communities and 730,000 people in southeastern Michigan. We then joined with Van Buren Township, Romulus, and Belleville to file for an injunction against this waste being transported. Wayne County also joined that lawsuit. The restraining order is still in effect today, but we need the legislature to act to make sure this radioactive waste never reaches Van Buren Township or even Romulus, Michigan, or our Great Lakes. Rep. Miller's bill is the action we need with strong tipping fees, including what we just heard from Senator Darren Camilleri. I just want to let you know about this radioactive waste, a few facts. Wayne Disposal is surrounded by environmental justice communities, which are areas populated by people of color, exposed to environmental hazards, and experience threats to public health as a result. Dumping radioactive waste here would heighten the already high public health risk for people of color and others living in these neighborhoods. Lewiston, New York has been trying to transport its radioactive waste to other states for quite some time, many years. When you go online and you read news reports from them, their residents are concerned about elevated cancer rates near these sites, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, lung cancer, bone cancer, colon cancer, breast cancer, and so on. The state of New York has not ruled out that exposure to this material was indeed a cause for these elevated cancer rates in Lewiston. Exposure to low doses of radiation over long periods of time can produce chronic long-term effects. They can cause DNA mutations or cancer. Children exposed to the radiation grow or develop at slower rates. There are 4 other sites in the nation permitted to accept this kind of waste, all situated in far less populated areas than Metro Detroit, 1 in Idaho, Utah, and 2 in Texas. In fact, according to the Army Corps of Engineers, the primary reason New York wants to dump in Michigan is to save money. It's because our tipping fees are too low.
And they don't want it. They won't take it.
They won't take it. There are large corporations against this also. And in Michigan, other in-state solutions need to be found to help them, but we need to take action for this. At least it's cheaper on paper, but there's a column missing in the Army Corps spreadsheet, and that's the people that live in Michigan, the people that live around this. So the communities before you, we matter in this. Our voices, health, and lives matter. Michigan residents matter. We got a clear message: no radioactive waste in Michigan. Michigan is unique. We don't have to go back far in our history to remember when decisions made with spreadsheets to save people money poison the drinking water of a large group of people in Flint. We can't repeat this. We have to take care of our people. So the people of Canton, Van Buren, Belleville, Romulus, Wayne County, and Michigan, we're united in our opposition to this. So please pass this bill, and Senator Darren Camilleri's also. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm Alan Wilson, Wayne County Commissioner, District Number 11, and it is an absolute honor to be here in support of legislation and laws that will codify, or should I say codify laws that will prevent companies from coming to Michigan and dumping toxic waste in our backyards. The supervisor mentioned earlier, she stole a little bit of my thunder because that's what happens when you're the next to last speaker. But on September the 4th, 2024, I was at that town hall over in Van Buren Township at the Wayne County TED campus location. It was really, really extraordinary to see the residents come together and to see the anger and the displeasure and the disdain that they had for toxic waste being dumped in their communities. And it's very, very important that we all stand together to try and preclude this from happening throughout our state. Representative Miller, tenacious fighter. I really appreciate her. That's why I'm here. Hour and a half drive to get up here. I'm sure most of you have driven just as far. But I'm here for a cause. And the cause is to make sure we support legislation that's going to stop this travesty from happening in our communities, this poisoning of our water. At the meeting on September the 4th, Commissioner Owls was there. Warren Evans, our county executive, did an amazing job as he stood before that anger crowd and answered questions. And as the supervisor said, he was behind pushing the lawsuit forward to try and prevent these type of situations from happening. But at the end of the day, it's critical that we, again, if we come together, I think we can make some inroads. But unfortunately, or should I say fortunately, however you want to categorize it, we have to reach across the aisle. This shouldn't be a partisan issue. It definitely should be a bipartisan issue because toxic waste and nuclear waste being dumped in our communities is not a partisan issue because it's going to sicken everyone, no matter what party you belong to. So I don't want to take too much of your time. Again, thank you for stealing my thunder, Supervisor. So I had to do a little bit more improvising, but I'm here for a reason, and that reason is a just reason. And I think we're going to be successful. Again, if we all just come together and stick to it, we'll be successful in getting legislation that's going to protect our citizens. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Okay, next one is activist Jessica Peterson.
Yes, thank you. Jessica Peterson. I am a local community member, and as they mentioned, there was a town hall meeting, and what I will say is we did not know about what was looming in our backyards. It was a well-kept secret for so many years, and at this point, I just wish we acted in this type of way, coming together before schools were built within 500 feet of this landfill. I wish we would have acted in this way before we started building our communities. I bought my house in this community 2 years ago, and I had no idea with 4 young children what was looming in our backyard. All of the communities surrounding it, after that town hall meeting, we came together and we realized just how disastrous this is. We called other community members in New York, And we realize that this is serious. This is serious. And I just want to thank everyone standing behind me for coming together, because quite honestly, this is our legacy. And when you start doing your research, it will be enough for you guys to turn your stomach. And honestly, anyone who doesn't support legislation, it is very clear it's because they're lining their pockets and they do not care about people. There is no good reason to have this in our backyard. And again, I created a group just so we can understand what people are putting profits over people. We need to know the people who are not supporting their communities. I need to understand why this has happened for so many years. And again, I'm just so grateful for a bill that is so detailed. And I want to thank everyone who's taken the time to put this together, because this isn't about strategy. This is common sense. Michigan is an outlier compared to other states. Other states have stopped taking this type of waste. But again, because we have not gone through these necessary steps, we became the dumping ground. And I'm just hopeful that those who are now waking up will do something about it, because we've reached our limits. We've taken enough abuse. How much more can we take? So again, thank you guys so much for putting so many details into this bill that were necessary, such as capacity limits, such as not being able to build another school within 500 feet. Again, it's common sense. So again, thank you. I really appreciate you guys.
And with that, we'll take any questions.
I'm sorry.
One over here. Are there any plans to include testing of the water or the air in the surrounding communities in the time that we're waiting for this bill to be passed?
So we have to pass this bill in order for any changes to come into effect. One of the things that's helpful is that this would require Eagle to put in place a plan, which they currently do not have. When we were discovering this issue and digging into the problem, they had to go back to the 1990s, I think it was.
the early 80s.
Early 80s, excuse me, even worse. Early 80s to look at their first plan that they actually had in place to handle this type of material. It has not been updated since, right? That's before I was born. Okay, this is a problem that has to be regulated from the state, in particular because we don't have leadership from the federal government. They are cutting the EPA. They are cutting department after department out of Washington, D.C., and so the state has to step up. Now, we cannot regulate interstate commerce. That's one of the challenges that we have as state elected officials. But the creative way that we put in place with this bill is that we've allowed for regulations that effectively would create those bans based on capacity limits. And that's something that we hope to see through the end. Any other questions?
I just want to say thank you to all of you for taking up the fight, and I really think that we need our communities to start performing some of this testing, because it's a long process to pass a bill, but we need to make sure that the residents are safe today.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you all so much.